Welcome to CIS 214, Section 1. Understanding the World Wide Web. Introduction. The Internet is a collection of computers around the world connected to each other via a high-speed series of networks. The World Wide Web, or web, consists of a vast assortment of files and documents that are stored on these computers and written in some form of hypertext markup language (HTML) that tells browsers how to display the information. The computers that store the files are called servers because they can serve requests from many users at the same time. Users access these HTML files and documents via applications called browsers. In this study session, we will discuss the web publishing process and also learn how to evaluate a website. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to explain the web publishing process, organize a sample website, learn how to evaluate a website. Web browsers. A web browser is a program that displays web pages and other documents on the web. Unfortunately, different browsers may interpret the HTML of web pages somewhat differently, and thus, when you create web pages, remember that they may appear different when viewed in various browsers. When a web page is opened in a browser, the browser reads and interprets the HTML file and formats the web page for display. If there are references to external files, such as images or multimedia, these files are downloaded from the server and displayed in the browser window. It is important to note that HTML files are text files that only contain references to the external files. You do not embed these files into the web page. Figure 1.1 Loading of a web page. Web usability. For a website to be usable, it must be convenient and practical for its intended audience. The content, images, navigation, and placement of these elements need to match what the visitor is expecting. Visitors can easily become frustrated and quickly go to another website. Designing web pages. We really don't read web pages, we scan them. When was the last time you read everything on a web page? Most visitors scan a web page looking for specific words or phrases. When they find an item that matches, they try to click that object to get more information. If it isn't what they want, the visitors simply click the back button and look for something else. The concept of scanning web pages is similar to how we read a newspaper, quickly scanning titles, reading a few lines here and there. Here are 5 important things you can do to make sure your visitors see and understand as much as possible about your web pages. 1. Create a clear visual hierarchy on each page. 2. Take advantage of conventions. 3. Break pages up into clearly defined areas. 4. Make it obvious what's clickable. 5. Minimize noise. Website organization, file naming conventions. When creating a website or a web page, there are a few rules for creating file names. These rules not only apply to HTML files, but to any file or document that is part of your website. 1. Use lowercase letters in your file names. You may use uppercase letters, but do so sparingly. Uploading files with capitals into WebCT can create problems. Some older browsers do not locate files that are not exactly specified. 2. Only use numbers and letters in your file names. File names must begin with a letter, not a number. Special characters except those noted below, should not be used, including hash and comma. Do not use any spaces within a file name. 3. Representing spaces within a file name. You may use the underscore, character, or the dash character to represent a space in a file name. 4. File extensions. Use HTML or HTML as a file extension when you name your HTML files. Be consistent with the convention you use. Site structure. Every website that you build or inherit should have a consistent and simple organization called a site structure. A site is a collection of HTML files, documents, and images contained in a single master folder, the root folder. Within this root folder, you can save your document and subfolders organized in a manner that makes sense to you, as well as to others in your department that may need to edit the information. We recommend that the structure of your website include 1. A root folder that contains the website. 2. A web page entitled index.htm or index.html that resides within the root folder to represent the default home page for the website. 3. An images folder that contains the graphics, illustrations, images, and photographs used in your web pages. 4. Additional folders for organizing your content. Web editors. Web editors are software programs that allow you to create and edit web pages in a visual editor or by using a built-in HTML editor. The visual editor allows you to edit and create web pages without knowing HTML. Some examples are Adobe Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver is a popular web editor and is the editor of choice for many novice and professional web designers. It is available for free from your college or department information technology consultant for university-owned computers only. Notepad++. This is an amazingly powerful source code editor with a vast number of features. Syntax highlighting makes it immediately easier to read and understand your code. For instance, code folding allows you to collapse some areas while you focus on others. Auto-completion helps you enter code more quickly and accurately. There is also a powerful search tool, easy document navigation, bookmarking, macro support, and more, all of which is presented in a highly configurable, easy-to-use interface. Go grab a copy immediately. Bluefish. This is a programmer's editor which also includes plenty of web-related tools and options. They start with the usual editing tricks: syntax highlighting, ASP, NET, CSS, HTML, JavaScript, PHP, and more are supported. Code folding, powerful find and search and replace tools, auto-completion, and more. Evaluating your website. This sounds easy, but even many veteran web designers forget to properly evaluate their website. You can have a colleague or friend help with the evaluation process. Determining which criteria to use in your evaluation can be a cumbersome task. Fortunately, there are many free sites on the web that contain a list of criteria on which to review your website. Don't forget to evaluate the sites you linked to from your web pages. Here are a couple of excellent resources that can assist you in evaluating your website. Checklist for written website. http://www.cyberb.com/design.pdf. Criteria for evaluating web pages, good for reviewing resources linked from your web pages. Designing your page to maximize rankings. Search engines that use programs to automatically index sites are using increasingly sophisticated rules to determine who gets the highest ranking top result in a web page. Following are some points to consider when designing your pages to help ensure that your site gets the highest ranking it can. 1. The titles of your pages are among the most important words in your site and are one of the most important things indexed. So, avoid using titles that just contain words such as homepage and instead go for descriptive titles such as Rockspress, Computer Programming Book, Publishers. 2. Then, on specific pages, the title could change to something like XHTML Programming Books, Learn to Code, and Build Websites. If the words the user types into the search engine are found in your title, the engine will consider your site more relevant. But don't make the title longer than one sentence, or the program will realize you are trying to fool it and count this against you. 3. Most search engines look through the text content of a page and will index that too. The first words tend to be considered the most relevant, so you should try to strategically place the keywords for your site in the text near the start of the page as well as in the title. You can also expand on that list of keywords here. 4. If the keywords a user searches on appear in the page with more frequency than other words, then they are considered to be more relevant. However, do not make them appear too frequently. Again, the search engine will count this against you. 5. If your site uses images instead of text, the site can index only your alt text, so try to make sure any information conveyed with images is also conveyed in text. 6. If you try to fool the search engines by repeating keywords in text that is the same color as the background so that the repetitive text is invisible to your users, then the search engines can penalize you for this. 7. Using keywords that are not related to the subject matter or the content of the site can count against you. 8. The more sites that link to yours, the better. Some search engines will give you higher priority if you are linked to buy lot of other sites. But know that they will also consider which site is linking to you. The site should be relevant to your business. A search engine would not consider a used car dealer's linking to a pet shop as being a relevant link. 9. The more users who click on links to your site when it comes up in the search engine, the better your rating should be. While things such as the title, keywords in the text, meta tags, and the number of links may help you appear nearer the top of the search engines, if nobody clicks on the links to visit your site, your ranking will soon fall. It can take a long time to build up your search engine rankings, but constant attention will help you get better and better. Moving your files to a web server. In order for your audience to see the web pages you create or edit, you need to copy your completed HTML files, documents, and images to a web server account, such as your faculty web account or a departmental web account. Uniform Resource Identifiers (URIs). URIs are strings that are used to reference resources. In terms of distributed systems, a URI has three distinct roles: naming, addressing, and identifying resources. We will focus on URIs identifying resources in the www, although they can be used for other abstract or physical entities as well. According to the specification, a URI consists of 5 parts: scheme, authority, part, query, and fragment. However, only scheme and part are mandatory. The other parts are optional. Scheme is declaring the type of the URI. and thus determines the meaning of the other part of the URI. If used, authority points to the responsible authority of the referenced resource. In case of HTTP as scheme, this part becomes mandatory and contains the host of the web server hosting the resource. It can optionally contain a port number. 80 is implied for HTTP and authentication data duplicated. The mandatory part section is used to address the resource within the scope of the scheme and authority. It is often structured hierarchically. The optional query part provides non-hierarchical data as part of the resource identifier. Fragments can be used to point to a certain part within the resource. It identifies a web resource. Scheme is HTTP that is hosted on the example.com on port 8080. The resource part is /over/dir and the query component contains the key/value pair search text. Furthermore, the first fragment of the resource is referenced. What a URL is made up of. A URL is made up of several parts, each of which offers information to the web browser to help find the page you are after. It is easier to learn the part of a URL if you look at the most common ones first. If you look at the example URL in figure 1.3, there are three key parts: the scheme, the host address, and the file part. The following sections discuss each of these in turn. Figure 1.3, Sample URL. The scheme. The scheme identifies the type of URL you are linking to and therefore how the resource should be retrieved. For example, most web pages use something called the Hypertext Transfer Protocol (HTTP) to pass information to you, which is why most web pages start with HTTP:// but you might have noticed other prefixes when doing banking online or downloading large files. The following table lists the most common schemes. Scheme. Description. HTTP:// Hypertext Transfer Protocol. HTTP is used to request pages from web servers and send them back from web servers to browsers. HTTP's Secure Hypertext Transfer Protocol. HTTP's encrypts the data sent between the browser and the web server using a digital certificate. FTP, File Transfer Protocol, is another method for transferring files on the web. While HTTP is a lot more popular for viewing websites because of its integration with browsers, FTP is still commonly used to transfer large files across the web and to upload source files to your web server. File, used to indicate that a file is on the local hard disk or a shared directory on a LAN. The host address. The host address is the address where a website can be found. It can either be an IP address for set of numbers between 0 and 255, for example 192.0.110.255, or more commonly the domain name for a site such as www.rocks.com. All computers connected to the internet can be found using an IP address. However, domain names are far easier to remember than IP addresses, so domain names are more commonly used. However, behind the scenes, all domain names are converted into the IP address for the computers that hold the website by consulting a domain name server (DNS), which contains a directory of domain names and the IP address of the computer that runs that website. Note that www is not actually part of the domain name, although it is often used in the host address. It has nothing to do with the HTTP protocol used. The file path. The file path always begins with a / character and may consist of one or more directory names. Remember, a directory is just another name for a folder on the web server. Each directory name is separated by / characters, and the file path may end with a file name at the end. Here, overview. HTML is the file name /books/new releases /beginning web development /overview.html. If a file name is not given, the web server will usually do one of three things depending upon how it is configured. Return the default file for websites written in HTML. This is often index.html or default.html. Offer a list of files in that directory. Show a message saying that the page cannot be found or that you cannot browse the files in a folder. Other parts of the URL. A URL may, less commonly, contain a number of other parts. Credentials are a way of specifying a username and password for a password-protected part of a site. The credentials come before the host address and are separated from the host address by an @ sign. Note how the username is separated from the password by a column. The following URL shows the username administrator and the password letmin. Other parts of the URL. Ports. Ports are like the doors to a web server. A web server often has several server programs running on the same machine, and each program communicates using a different port. For example, HTTP : and HTTPs : by default use different ports. Standard HTTP : usually uses port 80 and HTTPS : usually uses port 443. You will rarely have to specify a port, but if you do, it comes after the domain name and is separated from it with a colon. For example, if you wanted to specify that a web server was running on port 8080, you could use the following address: http www.rocks.com 8080 /index.html. Other parts of the URL. Fragment identifiers. Fragment identifiers can be used after a file name to indicate a specific part of the page that a browser should go to immediately. These are often used in long pages when you want to allow a user to get to a specific part of a page easily without having to scroll through the whole page to find that point. The fragment identifier is separated from the file name by a pound or hash sign. Absolute and relative URLs. As you have already seen, a URL is used to locate a resource on the internet. Each web page and image, in fact, every file on the internet has a unique URL, the address that can be used to find that particular file. No two files on the internet share the same URL. If you want to access a particular page on a website, you type the URL for that page into the address bar in your browser. For example, to get the page about film on the fictional news site you met earlier in the chapter, you might type in the URL. An absolute URL like this one contains everything you need to uniquely identify a particular file on the internet. As you can see, absolute URLs can quickly get quite long, and every page of a website can contain many links. So it's about time you learn the shorthand for URLs that point to files within your website. Relative URLs. Relative URLs. A relative URL indicates where the resource is in relation to the current page. For example, imagine you are looking at the index page for the entertainment section of the following fictional news site. Then you want to add a link to the index pages for each of the subsections: film, TV, art, and music. Rather than including the full URL for each page, you can use a relative URL. For example, film/index.html, TV/index.html, art/index.html, music/index.html. As I am sure you agree, this is a lot quicker than having to write out the following: http://www.examplenewssite.com/entertainment/film/index.html, http://www.examplenewsite.com/entertainment/tv/index.html, http://www.examplenewsite.com/entertainment/art/index.html, http://www.examplenewsite.com/entertainment/music/index.html. Another key benefit to using relative URLs within your site is that it means you can change your domain name or copy a subsection of one site to a new site without having to change all of the links, because each link is relative to other pages within the same site. Note that relative URLs work only on links within the same directory structure on the same website. You cannot use them to link to pages on other servers. Different types of relative URLs, same directory. When you want to link to or include a resource from the same directory, you can just use this name of that file. For example, to link from the home page index.html to the contact us page contactus.html, you can use the following: contact us HTML. Because the file lives in the same folder, you do not need to specify anything else. Different types of relative URLs, subdirectory. The film, TV, art, and music directories from Figure 2 to 4 were all subdirectories of the entertainment directory. If you are writing a page in the entertainment directory, you can create a link to the index page of the subdirectories like so: film/index.html, TV/index.html, art/index.html, music/index.html. You include the name of the subdirectory followed by a / director and the name of the page you want to link to. Subdirectory. For each additional subdirectory, you just add the name of the directory followed by a / character. So, if you are creating a link from a page in the root folder of the site, such as the site's main home page, you use a relative URL like this to reach the same pages: entertainment/film/index.html, entertainment/tv/index.html, entertainment/art/index.html, entertainment/music/index.html. Parent directory. If you want to create a link from one directory to its parent directory, the directory that it's in, you use the ... notation of two periods or dot followed by a / character. For example, from a page in the music directory to a page in the entertainment directory, your relative URL looks like this: ... index.html. If you want to link from the music directory to the root directory, you repeat the notation ... index.html. Each time you repeat the ... notation, you go up another directory. From the root, it is also possible to indicate a file relative to the root folder of the site. So if you wanted to link to the contactus.html page from any page within the site, you use its part preceded by a /. For example, if the Contact Us page is in the root folder, you just need to enter /contactus.html. Alternatively, you can link to the music section's index page from anywhere within that site using the following: /entertainment/music/index.html. The / at the start indicate the root directory, and then the path from there is specified. Default files. You may have noticed on many websites that you do not need to actually specify the exact page that you want to view. For example, you might just enter the domain name or the domain name and a directory such as or http://www.examplenewssite.com/http://www.examplenewssite.com/entertainment/. The Hypertext Transfer Protocol. The Hypertext Transfer Protocol (HTTP) is an application-level protocol that represents the foundation of communication for the WWW on top of TCP/IP. HTTP is a stateless protocol, applies with a client-server architecture and a request-response communication model. Servers host resources that are identified by URLs and can be accessed by clients. The client issues an HTTP request to the server, which in return provides an HTTP response. The communication model limits the possible message patterns to single request/response cycles that are always initiated by the client. Apart from clients and servers, HTTP also describes optional intermediaries, so-called proxies. These components provide additional features such as caching or filtering. Proxies combine features of a client and a server and are thus often transparent for the client and servers in terms of communication. HTTP requests and responses have a common structure. Both start with a request line, respectively status line. The next part contains a set of header lines that include information about the request, respectively response, and about the entity. The entity is an optional body of an HTTP message that contains payloads such as a representation of the resource. While the two parts of an HTTP message are text-based, the entity can be any set of bytes. HTTP request lines contain a request URL and a method. There are different HTTP methods that provide different semantics when applied to a resource. In the subsequent HTTP response, the server informs the client about the outcome of a request by using predefined status codes. Study section summary. In this study session, you learned that 1. The Internet is a collection of computers around the world connected to each other via a high-speed series of networks. The World Wide Web, or web, consists of a vast assortment of files and documents that are stored on these computers and written in some form of hypertext markup language, HTML. 2. A site is a collection of HTML files, documents, and images contained in a single master folder, the root folder. 3. Every website that you build or inherit should have a consistent and simple organization called a site structure. 4. A website should include a root folder, an index, an images folder, and additional folder for organizing your content. 5. A web browser is a program that displays web pages and other documents on the web. 6. Hypertext Transfer Protocol (HTTP) is an application-level protocol that represents the foundation of communication for the WWW on top of TCP/IP. This is the end of study section 1. Thanks for listening.